It usually starts with something small: a broken faucet, a car that won't start, a heavy piece of furniture that needs moving, a problem at work he doesn't completely understand. Someone looks at him and says, "Why don't you call somebody?" And his answer comes almost immediately: "No, I've got it." Maybe you've heard a Gen X man say those words before. Maybe it was your father, your uncle, your co-worker, or maybe you've said them yourself. He'll spend 3 hours trying to repair something that a professional could fix in 30 minutes. He'll drive across town instead of asking someone for a ride. He'll struggle with a problem for weeks before admitting he doesn't know what to do. And even when someone offers help, his first instinct is often the same: "I'm good," to younger generations. This can look stubborn, proud, unnecessarily difficult. But for many Gen X men, refusing help isn't simply a personality trait. It's connected to the world that raised them. Generation X grew up in a very different environment. Many spent childhood afternoons without smartphones, without constant contact with parents, without GPS, without the internet waiting to answer every question. If something went wrong, you often had to figure it out. You got lost. You found your way home. Your bicycle chain came off. You put it back on. Something broke. You opened it up and tried to understand how it worked. There wasn't always someone immediately available to solve the problem. So independence wasn't just admired, it was practiced. Again, and again, and again. Over time, a lesson began forming. If there's a problem, handle it. For many boys growing up during that era, asking for help could also come with embarrassment. You didn't want to be the kid who couldn't do something. You didn't want your friends laughing at you. You didn't want your father saying, "You should know this." So you tried. You failed. You tried again. And eventually, you figured it out. That feeling was powerful, because every solved problem created evidence. Evidence that you could depend on yourself. Years later, that boy becomes a man. The bicycle becomes a car. The school problem becomes a mortgage. The scraped knee becomes a family crisis. The problems become bigger, but the old rule remains: handle it yourself. This is where something useful can slowly become something complicated. Self-reliance is valuable. It builds confidence, competence, resilience. But extreme self-reliance can turn every request for help into something emotionally uncomfortable. Because now, asking isn't just asking. It can feel like admitting failure. Imagine a Gen X man standing in his garage on a Saturday morning. The hood of his car is open. Tools are scattered everywhere. He's been working for hours. His neighbor walks over. "You need a hand?" He barely looks up. Nope, almost got it. He does not almost have it. He knows that. The neighbor probably knows that. But accepting help means doing something that feels strangely difficult. It means surrendering control. And control matters more than people realize. When you've spent decades solving your own problems, being dependent on someone else can feel unpredictable. What if they don't show up? What if they make things worse? What if they hold the favor over you later? What if they think less of you? Doing it yourself eliminates those questions. It might take longer. It might be harder. But at least, the outcome belongs to you. There's also a deeper emotional layer. Many Gen X men grew up during a time when male vulnerability wasn't discussed the way it is today. A boy could be angry. He could be competitive. He could be tough. But fear, confusion, loneliness, those emotions were often handled privately. Sometimes the advice was simple: shake it off, deal with it, stop complaining, be a man. Those sentences may have sounded harmless, but repeated enough times, they could teach a powerful lesson. Your problems belong to you, so keep them there. And that's exactly what many men learned to do. They became experts at carrying things quietly. Financial stress, marriage problems, work pressure, fear about getting older, worry about their children, concern about their parents. They carry all of it without making the phone call. Someone asks, "Everything okay?" "Yeah." "You sure?" "Yeah, just tired." Conversation over. The interesting part is that these same men are often the first people others call for help. Your car breaks down? Call him. Need something moved? Call him. Something needs fixing? Call him. Need advice? He'll answer. He may complain a little. He may tell you what you should have done differently, but he'll probably show up. That's the contradiction. He'll help everyone, but struggle to let anyone help him. Psychologically, there's an important difference between giving help and receiving it. Giving help keeps you in the position of competence. You are useful. You are needed. You are solving the problem. Receiving help reverses that position. Now someone else sees that you need something. And for a man who built part of his identity around being dependable, that can feel surprisingly vulnerable. Think of it like armor. Every time life became difficult, he added another piece: independence, humor, competence, silence, responsibility. Eventually, the armor became so effective that everyone assumed nothing could hurt him. The problem is, armor doesn't only stop things from getting in, it can stop things from getting out. Stress stays inside. Fear stays inside. Grief stays inside. And eventually, even strong armor becomes heavy. You can see this most clearly when the problem isn't mechanical. Give him a broken lawnmower, and he'll spend the weekend fixing it. Give him an emotional problem, and suddenly there are no tools, no instruction manual, no obvious broken part. He can't tighten a bolt, replace a fuse, or watch the engine start again. He has to talk. And talking requires a completely different kind of skill. So instead, he stays busy. He goes to work, cleans the garage, mows the lawn, fixes something that didn't really need fixing. Because sometimes, solving a physical problem feels easier than sitting with an emotional one. And from the outside, everything looks normal. That's why extreme independence can be difficult to recognize. It often looks like strength, and sometimes it is strength. But strength and isolation are not the same thing. There's a difference between saying, "I can handle this," and believing, "I must handle everything alone." One is confidence. The other can become a prison, because eventually, life gives every man a problem he cannot solve by himself. Maybe it's losing someone he loves. Maybe it's losing a job. Maybe it's watching a parent get older. Maybe it's realizing his children don't need him in the same way anymore. Maybe it's simply waking up one morning and realizing he's exhausted. For years, he was the person everyone leaned on. Now he needs somewhere to lean. And suddenly, he discovers something painful. He never learned how to ask. The phone is sitting right there. There are people who would answer: friends, brothers, children, old co-workers, people who genuinely care. But making the call feels heavier than carrying the problem. So he tells himself, "I'll figure it out," just like he always has. But maybe the lesson that helped him survive one stage of life doesn't have to control every stage that follows. Because asking for help doesn't erase independence. It doesn't erase competence. And it doesn't erase everything you've handled before. Sometimes, asking for help is simply another way of solving the problem. The difference is, this time, you don't have to solve it alone. And this is where many Gen X men reach an uncomfortable crossroads. Because the older you get, the more life changes the rules. When you're 25, doing everything yourself can feel powerful. You have energy, time, strength. You can spend an entire Saturday fixing something and still wake up Sunday ready to go again. But decades later, the same strategy starts costing more. Your body gets tired faster. Your responsibilities become heavier. Your problems become more complicated. And some things simply cannot be repaired with determination. Still, the instinct remains. Don't bother anyone. Don't complain. Figure it out. There's a phrase many Gen X men say without even noticing. I don't want to bother anybody. Think about that sentence. Not, nobody would help me. Not, I don't have anyone. But, I don't want to bother anybody. Somewhere along the way, needing another person became associated with becoming a burden. So instead of calling, he waits. Instead of asking, he struggles. Instead of saying, I could really use some help, he says, don't worry about me. And usually, people believe him. That's the dangerous part about becoming extremely self-reliant. You become so convincing at appearing fine that eventually, people stop checking. They assume you'll call if you need something, but you don't call because you've spent your entire life believing that needing something is exactly what you shouldn't admit. Then something strange happens. The man who spent decades being surrounded by people can slowly become isolated without realizing it. Not because people abandoned him, because he stopped giving them opportunities to show up. Friendship isn't built only by helping others. It's also built by allowing others to help you. Think about your closest relationships. They probably weren't created through perfect moments. They were created when someone needed something. A ride home, advice, a place to stay, someone to listen. Those moments communicate something powerful. I trust you enough to need you. For a highly independent man, that sentence can be difficult, but it can also be the beginning of deeper connection. Imagine two old friends. They've known each other for 30 years. They've attended weddings, raised children, changed jobs, lost parents. They've shared thousands of conversations, but almost none of those conversations included the words, I'm struggling. Then, one evening, one of them finally says it. Work isn't going well. His marriage feels distant. He's worried about money. He doesn't know what comes next. There's a long silence. He expects judgment. Instead, his friend says, Why didn't you tell me? And suddenly, he realizes something. The help was always available. He simply never asked. Sometimes, that's the tragedy of extreme independence. We assume asking will change how people see us. But the people who truly care about us often feel honored that we trusted them enough to call. There's another side to this. A man who never asks for help can accidentally teach his children the same lesson. Children don't only learn from what their fathers tell them. They learn from what their fathers demonstrate. If dad fixes every problem alone, hides every struggle, never admits confusion, and never asks anyone for support, his son may learn. This is what being a man looks like. His daughter may learn. Men don't need anyone, and the cycle continues. Another generation grows up believing strength means silence. But imagine something different. A father is working in the garage. Something isn't going right. His son watches him struggle. Instead of becoming frustrated, the father pulls out his phone. He calls a friend. Hey, I'm stuck. Can you give me a hand? 20 minutes later, they're working together, laughing, solving the problem. What did the son just learn? not weakness. Resourcefulness. He learned that capable people ask questions, that strong people collaborate, that needing help doesn't erase competence, it expands it. That's an important distinction. Self-reliance says, I can take care of myself. Healthy interdependence says, I can take care of myself, and I know when another person can help me. Those ideas don't contradict each other. In fact, the second may require more confidence than the first. Because asking for help requires admitting something every human being eventually discovers. You don't know everything. You can't control everything. And you cannot carry everything forever. There's freedom in accepting that. You don't have to become dependent. You don't have to call someone every time something goes wrong. You don't have to abandon the independence that helped shape you. Keep the resourcefulness. Keep the resilience. Keep the instinct to try before giving up. Those qualities are valuable. But maybe update the rule. Instead of never ask for help, try know when help makes sense. That's not surrender. That's wisdom. Because sometimes the strongest tool in your toolbox is another person. Someone with experience you don't have. Someone who sees what you can't see. Someone who can carry one side while you carry the other. And maybe that's what many Gen X men eventually discover. Being dependable doesn't mean being alone. Being strong doesn't mean being silent. And being the person everyone calls doesn't mean you're never allowed to make a call yourself. So the next time you're standing in the garage, 3 hours into a 30-minute repair, and someone says, "You want a hand?" Maybe don't answer immediately. Maybe resist that automatic, "I've got it." Look at the problem. Look at the person offering. And consider saying something different. Yeah. Actually, I could use one. Because sometimes, those 5 words don't make you less independent. They simply remind you that you were never supposed to do everything alone.